Hey everyone, Andrew here, and welcome to episode 29 of Beyond the Bike podcast. Hope everyone's doing really well. And here we are. The holidays are over and we are back at it. So it's Monday, and again, depending on when you're listening to the podcast, it could be during the week, but you know what? It's full throttle. I'm imagining that everyone is back at it, and we're back into the routine, and the holidays are over. The good times are over. So in episode 29, we're going to I'll start with a few opening ideas, and then we're going to go into chapter 19 of our book, The Atomic Habits by James Clear. And we're going to look at the Goldilocks rule, how to stay motivated in life and work. And then we're going to finish with a few quotes and again, some ideas for you guys to carry with you for the rest of the week. So without any further ado, let's get rolling. And I wanted to start this week's podcast by just, thanking all of you guys for what an awesome welcome back to Instagram. And the break was nice, but I have to say, I did that post on New Year's Eve, and what an incredible warm welcome I got from the PeloCREW community. And I wanted to start off by thanking everyone that either liked the post or, left a kind comment. And again, that means a lot to me. So, you know what? I'm back and did a couple of Insta stories over the weekend. And you know what? It's nice to be back. And it's nice to be, cheering you guys on again. And hopefully, again, that's the big idea. One of the big ideas of why I'm on Instagram is, you know what? If there's something that I either post or if there's something that I say, if there's something that I'm doing that, encourages you to be at your best, to take that next step, to go for it, I have met my goal. And so again, I wanted to thank you guys for that. So that's awesome. So I'm a big fan of James Clear, and again, this book, you know what? It's something else. Again, it's one of those things. The podcast, it was over a long period of time. And to kind of really spread it out. I know maybe for some of you guys, you're like, okay, you know what? I want to read this book. I want to get her done. But for me, what a benefit it's been to kind of slow down the process and, really kind of take it week by week. And so this week, I'm on Twitter, and the Twitter stuff for me is mostly like professional. So my Twitter account is really just work around my school and things that are happening in the school. But I'm following James Clear on Twitter, and I encourage you to do the same if you're not already, because he tweets out really, really insightful things. And it's a great thing. I think that's going to live beyond the book as it comes to an end next week. So, again, one of the things that he tweeted out in the past week was, and it kind of spoke to me, and he talked about developing a bias for moving fast. And I'm encouraging all of you guys as we throw ourselves, we're out of the gate in 2020 and the motivation is high right now and we're crushing goals and we just have to make sure that we kind of understand, we have a good understanding that there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows. There's going to be periods of stagnation, where you're kind of not as motivated to do things. But again, it takes time. And so the question in the Twitter post that he did was, he says, consistently ask, what's the real goal here? And is there a better way to accomplish it? And so that's something that we can think about too as we navigate through this year. And I don't know if that's something you guys have noticed about me if you're listening from week to week. I'm not big on, having one, set way of doing things. And then it's just like, this is the way, and I'm just going to stay the course with that. I'm a huge believer in you got to consistently reassess what you're doing. And if the results that you're seeking are not happening, just reflect. Reflect on, what is it that I'm doing right now? And are there little things I could do better? Are there little things that I could tweak that could make things better for me, where I could maybe start to achieve some of my goals a little quicker? And so, I thought about that tweet and I said to myself, you know what, those are two big points and things that we can really reflect on this year. And so again, develop a bias for moving fast, people. Like, let's be patient. It's a long year. We've got to settle in now. And we just kind of have to say to ourselves, you know what, it's going to take time. And we're here. We're here to put in the work. We're here to show up. And we're also here to support each other when needed. And also, don't be afraid to just, reflect. And that's what this, if you think of this podcast, that's something that you want to look at. Like, that's what I do each week. I'm constantly reflecting. And, through this podcast, I'm just sharing it with all of you guys. But at the end of the day, it's just constantly reflecting on, what am I doing? And is it yielding the results that I'm looking for? And is there a better way? Are there small tweaks that I could make to the system that could allow for me to, achieve, what I'm trying to achieve? So there you go. Opening Thoughts podcast, episode 29. So let's dive into the book now. Let's get into chapter 19. And chapter 19 is a good one. Like, it's really so important for us to kind of, look at, some of the ideas that are being presented in the book. And I found chapter 19 for me, it was a key, another really, really important chapter. So chapter 19, the Goldilocks rule, how to stay motivated in life and work. And isn't that that's huge? Like, that's huge. I don't know about you guys, but again, I'm being transparent here. And that's part of what I want to do. Like, I want you guys to listen to this podcast, and I want you to understand that, you know what, your best day, be on the bike. I'm just like everyone else. And we're all the same. And there's going to be highs, there's going to be lows. How do we stay motivated? What are some of the things that we can be aware of so that when that little negative, you think of that self-talk, and I go through it every week again with this podcast and other stuff too, is like, I don't feel like it. I don't want to do it, But how is it that if I'm aware of it, then how can I learn to move through it? And so in chapter 19, I got 3 quotes. And let's listen in. I got the first quote here. We're going to listen in, got a few ideas to add to it, and then let's go from there.
And yet, Steve Martin faced this fear every week for 18 years. In his words, 10 years spent learning, 4 years spent refining, and 4 years as a wild success. Why is it that some people, like Martin, stick with their habits, whether practicing jokes or drawing cartoons or playing guitar, while most of us struggle to stay motivated? How do we design habits that pull us in rather than ones that fade away? Scientists have been studying this question for many years. While there is still much to learn, one of the most consistent findings is that the way to maintain motivation and achieve peak levels of desire is to work on tasks of just manageable difficulty.
All right, so again, when we look at this first quote from chapter 19, one of the things that pops into my head, and I'm encouraging you guys to kind of, look at where you're at, look at what you're trying to achieve this year, and think about really playing the long game in 2020. And, keep that idea around when we look at true accomplishments, that nothing of true meaning happens right away, and if we can start to make, to set goals and to make plans that are just slightly above our ability level, that's when we're going to start to see the gains over time. And one of the things I thought about, and this is something that I find for myself that kind of works for me, is the idea around, I know I'm in this sweet spot in my training when I'm achieving wins, so I'm coming off some of the rides and I'm like, yeah, that was good. And look at the output, look at how I felt, look at how my body responded in that training. So I got that happening, but then there's also rides where there's a bit of failure. There's a bit of like, I didn't achieve the goal. And so it's almost like finding that sweet spot of where you're achieving success, but it's also just a little bit difficult to do that. And if you can find yourself in that zone, that's really where you can start, you can really make those gains. And again, when we think of motivation, allowing that motivation to stay there and be there. Well, when I show up for a ride and I'm not 100% sure on how it's going to go, that motivation is going to be high. That motivation is going to be high, And so again, think about that. Let's go to clip number 2.
The Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too hard, not too easy, just right. Martin's comedy career is an excellent example of the Goldilocks rule in practice. Each year, he expanded his comedy routine, but only by a minute or two. He was always adding new material, but he also kept a few jokes that were guaranteed to get laughs. There were just enough victories to keep him motivated.
So there you go. So again, it's around that idea of, making small adjustments as you go, and again, that's something that I'm going to start to incorporate in my training this year. I'd like to, if I look at, PRs and stuff like that, I really stayed away from it. But as I get into 2020 and I start to, set my sights on maybe new levels on Peloton, I have a whole different approach than I've had in the past. So, before it was really about, do some training and then when you feel right, go for it. This year, what I want to try to do is I want to try to look at really like the science behind it and look at the data, look at the numbers, and really start to look at, okay, so what I'm going to do is in order to achieve a really strong PR, I'm going to have an average cadence of this and an average resistance of that. And then what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to start to chip away at it and kind of break down the time. So instead of trying to go for it at 30 minutes or even 45 minutes, I'm going to start to go at, okay, you know what? I'm going to do this over the year. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down. I'm just going to isolate the first 5 minutes. And I'm really going to, train the body to be able to execute it over a 5-minute period. Then once that starts to become comfortable, I'm going to increase the time. And you know what? I'm pumped about this because in my mind, I'm thinking, you know what? If I can break it down and I can do it over a long period of time and I can allow for my body to adjust over a long period of time, then the probability of injury becomes very, decreased, lower. And, again, me at my age, that's kind of my big thing. This is a lifelong journey. I want to be doing this forever. And so the key is to keep the body healthy. So food for thought. Think about that. Think about, what am I doing right now? And could I start to look at breaking it down over a longer period of time where then I know that the body, the mind is ready. And then when I go for it, it's basically just execution, and you're removing that requirement of, the unknown of going for a PR. How many times have I been in situations where I've kind of been at the beginning of a ride and I've made a decision, okay, today's the day where I'm going to go for the PR, and you don't know what's going to happen. And so you're just kind of reacting to situations, how the ride's going, the level of difficulty, how your body's feeling, how your mind's reacting in regard to your body. I want to take that all out of the equation. And I really want to approach it more in a scientific way. So, you know what? Again, maybe I've lost some of you, but that's really where I'm going to focus this year. And I'm excited to see where I go by the end of this year. And I have a target in mind. I have a target, kind of PR that I want to achieve this year. And I'm going to give myself the full 2020 to achieve it. All right, let's get into the third and final quote for today.
Work ethic. People talk about getting amped up to work on their goals. Whether it's business or sports or art, you hear people say things like, "It all comes down to passion," or "You have to really want it." As a result, many of us get depressed when we lose focus or motivation because we think that successful people have some bottomless reserve of passion. But this coach was saying that really successful people feel the same lack of motivation as everyone else. The difference is that they still find a way to show up despite the feelings of boredom. Mastery requires practice, but the more you practice something, the more boring and routine it becomes.
So, in chapter 19, the Goldilocks rule, how to stay motivated in life and work, James Clear, I think he sums it up right there. Again, this is my 2 cents. Is, if you look at some of the factors, things like nutrition, things like rest, things like our training. As part of the training, there's frustration. We achieve happiness, there's joy, we celebrate our successes. But at the end of the day, over a long period of time, there's one feeling that you're going to have to learn, or we all have to learn to move past. And it's boredom. It's boredom. It's boredom of doing what we're doing day in, day out. And so I feel that knowing that we're all the same. And again, let's not be, I'm saying this, I hope I don't ruffle any feathers, but, if we think of, what we portray or what's portrayed on social media, it's so easy for us to look at, specific people or, things that people are doing and go, wow, you know what? Oh man, they seem to really have it together. They really seem to be motivated, and every day they're showing up and they're going for it and they're doing it. And I just don't have that, And that's where you have to hit the pause button on that thought. And you have to say to yourself that we're all the same. The only difference is that when we look at, the idea of the mundane day-to-day training and showing up, it's going to get boring, And it's really, I think the difference is the people that are able to kind of persevere through it. I know for me, that's really been the key to success, It's been the key to success. There's times where you just don't want to do something, but you're able to persevere through that feeling and go for it. Because you know that on the other side is this amazing feeling of accomplishment. And that's what you focus your energy towards. So in 2020, let's all be aware of that. Let's be aware of the idea. Two things. One, we're all the same. Regardless of what we're putting out there on social media, everyone is the same. We all go through the same feelings, sentiments about things, the idea of wanting to show up or not, okay? So let's not kid ourselves. But if in 2020 we can just start to have a mindset of pushing through the boredom, pushing through those ideas of not wanting to do something, and just saying to yourself that, you know what? There's days I'm just not going to be motivated. I'm just not going to be motivated to do it. But I'm going to be a part of that small percentage of people, or that percentage of people that are able to persevere through. And if you can start to do that, the sky's the limit. Sky is the limit. So, you know what? Again, just sharing some ideas out there. Would love to hear from you guys around chapter 19. And I provide the link to the survey. And if you want to leave a question, a comment, an idea, something you'd like me to share in the next podcast, I would love to do that. So there you go. Chapter 19 in the books. And we have one more chapter to go next week, chapter 20. All right, let's finish up. This week, I want you guys to think about a couple of things. First thing, nobody wants to tell you why discipline is so important. And this is, again, I'm taking this from Instagram. It's a page called Fearless Motivation Official, and they have some good stuff there. And something for us to think about this week. Nobody wants to tell you why discipline is so important. We just talked about that. Discipline is the strongest form of self-love. It's ignoring current pleasures for bigger rewards to come. I've talked about that through the past 29 episodes, and it's a big theme. And if there's one thing that you can take away from all these podcasts that you listen to, is the idea around investing today, doing the small things today for a bigger reward in the future. Because that's really what it's all about. And it's loving yourself enough to give yourself everything you've ever wanted. And I find, I don't know about you guys, but I find that for me, that's been one of the awesome things about being on Instagram with the Peloton community, is we're a group of people, and we're all on the journey of coming to the conclusion that the more I do for myself, the more I invest in my happiness, in my well-being, mind, body, and soul, the better I do around that, the better I am for everyone else. And everyone wins, including myself. So I read that, and I said to myself, you know what, that's key. That's key for sure. So to finish up, James Clear, another little tweet: new goals don't deliver new results, but new lifestyles do. And a lifestyle is a process, not an outcome. So for this reason, all of your energy should go into building better habits and not chasing better results. Again, let's just focus on showing up every day and being our best every day. So, there you go. In the books, episode 29. And feel free, if you want to watch the podcast, it's on YouTube now as part of my little 2020 tweaks to the system. visit beyondthebike.weebly.com. The videos are there. And you know what? I'm going to leave you with this question this week. What will I need to do when boredom sets in this year? What are the things that I can prepare for? Something that I could write out that would allow for me, or something that I could think about that would allow for me to push through that. So with that being said, I hope you guys have an awesome week, and I really, really appreciate everyone who listens to the podcast. And again, feel free to send me any feedback or comments. I value those too. So I'm going to leave you like I do every week, and let's have an awesome week. Let's be good to the people around us. Let's be good to our family members. And you know what? Let's go get it. All right. Have a great week, everyone. Take care.